What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller here alongside Owen Hassell. Week 2 of our weekly tradition this year to talk a little high school football for you in the midweek and get everybody excited for the Friday night lights that are ahead. And Owen, it was kind of an interesting first week. I'm thankful that unlike the rest of the state, we were able to get most of our games in on Friday night as scheduled. South Brunswick had to move things to Monday, but a pretty good overall first week for our local teams. I think we had, over 60% of the teams came away with a W the first week of the season.
Yeah, I think the first winner is the weather.
Yeah.
That Mother Nature helped out just enough to have that first week of games for the most part, like you said, Friday, because a lot of areas of the state weren't as fortunate. I know some games were just finishing up Monday night. So there's that. Two, I don't know if there were a bunch of surprises from first week, but we should get into that maybe.
No, not too many surprises at all. I think, some impressive performances that maybe we weren't necessarily expecting. I think we were all expecting New Hanover to win, but to get a running clock and look so good in Dylan Dimmock's first game in charge was a little bit of a surprise. And South Brunswick ran away from West Blada. That's a good win for Rocky, and he's got a young team over there, but he's a pretty... Rocky Lewis, that is, the head coach of South Brunswick, he's pretty bullish on their chances. And I think overall the biggest, the surprises were just how teams looked pretty good right away. Like West Brunswick going to Sikorsky, South Carolina, and getting a 28-0 lead win. Two of the teams that we kind of highlighted at the beginning of the year we're really interested to see how they're going to perform in 2019 are facing off this Friday night. And let's talk about that first. West Brunswick at Whiteville. I'll be making the trip out to Whiteville's Legion Stadium this Friday night to cover that game. Like I said, West Brunswick 28-0 winners over Sikorsky. Whiteville a 33-7 winner over North Brunswick on Friday night. I really think this is a toss-up. Could go either way. Last year, Whiteville outlasted West Brunswick in a 14-7 kind of defensive battle. And as for all the talent that Whiteville has on offense, and West Brunswick's got a lot of weapons, they don't have some huge names like Whiteville, but they've got some depth. I think it's going to be similar to last year, where I think both defenses have an opportunity to kind of impose their will, especially with an inexperienced offensive line on Whiteville's side of the ball.
I think West Brunswick matches up better with Whiteville than maybe was seen on paper. Mm-hmm. And that'll be a big difference, like you just said, on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. It's definitely going to be a challenge for Whiteville compared to North Brunswick last week, which we were all looking to that anyway. I have this game pegged as my non-conference game of the year to watch in the area, because if West Brunswick can win this game, how much it can really springboard
huge confidence
Brett
boost.
Hickman and the Trojans to the rest of the year, because this is a game so close to winning last year, early in the year. Imagine what confidence that would have brought on in Coach's first year. Mm-hmm. Now they're coming off a victory.
Yeah.
Now you go to Whiteville, if you can pull off a win there, wow, that's going to really be a lot for the Trojans, and that could make them, I don't really like the term sleeper pick a whole lot, but a sleeper pick to be in that top level of the Mid-Eastern Conference.
West Brunswick, if they can win this game, there's a great shot. They're going to be 4-0 going into Mid-Eastern Conference play. And like you said, I don't know if West Brunswick necessarily can win the MEC this year, but on any given night, if Javion and Savion McCray dominate on the defensive line and their outside weapons get loose a little bit, they could beat any team in the Mid-Eastern, and that includes Hoggard and New Hanover. Now, they could also lose to Hoggard, Hanover, Laney, and Topsail if they don't bring their A game. So I think you're right. This is a huge game for West Brunswick. It's a big game for Whiteville, too, but their aspirations of making the next step come more in the Three Rivers Conference, where they want to beat the likes of East Bladen and South Columbus this year. Whereas for West Brunswick, you've got a group of seniors. This is a game playing a 3A school, playing a 2A school. This is one of the better groups that you've had. You need to have a really good performance and hopefully pull off the win. Let's move on to the next game, which might be one of the best games across the entire state this week. That's Hoggard at Scotland County Friday night. None of us are going to cover, but we've got a stringer that's working for the Fayetteville paper, who is our sister paper, who's covering that game for us. And Scotland County didn't play until Monday. Last night they beat Southeast Guilford 28-3. It's a pretty impressive. Southeast Guilford's a really good team, and what a test for Hoggard right away to start its season, having to travel and face one of the best football programs in this state's history.
Maybe not a no-win situation, but a hard-to-get-a-victory situation to start a season. It's hard to think of another school, at least in the eastern part of the state, that has a more difficult road test to start the year than Hoggard. I know a lot of people want to think about that 2017 game, which you're going to have a story about that and as a tease.
Yeah.
But that's 2017, so 2019, obviously two different teams. At the same time, this is going to be a tremendous challenge for Hoggard to go there and see what happens. It's just going to be a tremendous challenge.
Yeah. And you got to say Scotland County's the favorite, but I will say Scotland County's going to be playing on short rest. Hoggard has not played a game yet. They're healthy. They are, the Vikings are going to be geared up and ready, and because it's their first game, maybe you can surprise Scotland a little bit early on with your, and then as the game wears on with your adrenaline early on, first game of the season, and then as the game wears on, maybe you can tire them out if maybe Scotland County is reeling from playing Monday night, but. That's a lot to ask for because we know the Scots are usually a deep and strong team.
Now, I think the flip side of that is you almost have too much rest. Not that Hoggard tried to plan for this, of course. We're supposed to play last week. South Robertson shutting its doors late. Who do you find as a first week opponent? Couldn't. Here's where we are. But there can be a situation where too much rest could be a bad thing, and you want to maybe ease into that second week of the season, and instead Hoggard wanted to do that, scheduled for that.
Not going to happen.
And then, no, it didn't happen. So things happen. It's where they are now. No one's making excuses. Hoggard's not making excuses about it. They're going to go there and play, and it'll still be a good game.
And they can go all out because after this, they got their bye week. And
that's the crazy part about it.
But one thing I really want to touch on real quick before we move on. I'm very interested to see Gabe Johnson's stat line and hear how he plays in this game. I think the junior's primed to take a huge step forward this year, but there's new weapons around him against a defense that gave up just 3 points to Southeast Guilford. It'll be a test. I'm looking forward to seeing how he performs in that environment. He's not a first-year sophomore starting quarterback anymore. He's a junior and kind of the leader of that Hoggard team. Next up, Wallace Rose Hill at Southwest Onslow. The Stallions beat the Bulldogs twice last year. The Stallions lost 27-0 to Jacksonville last week. Wallace Rose Hill beat East Bladen 49-0. I think there's some revenge could happen in this game.
There could. I don't want people to take too much out of Southwest Onslow losing to Jacksonville.
No,
Jacksonville's a pretty good team.
They're a very good team.
Havelock last year in the playoffs, so there's no real shame in losing that game, even though you'd like to at least put a point on the board.
And last year, they beat Southwest Onslow before, and Wallace Rose Hill was coming off a win, a kind of similar, but the results weren't that lopsided last year.
But you don't have a B.J. Jordan.
No, you don't have a B.J.
Jordan. He was kind of an X factor for the Stallions last year. I mean, the whole went to Trask and then Trask all that aside. Southwest Onslow doesn't maybe are down a little bit with some leadership from last year.
Yeah. First
game of the year. I think either way this can be. I think there's a little more of a toss up than perhaps people are looking at with the tradition stacked Wallace Rose Hill team.
I think this could be a coming out party for the Bulldogs, especially because their schedule after this, East Bladen and Southwest Onslow is not an easy start, but it gets even harder with Havelock and Wake Forest on the schedule. You want a good seed in the playoffs. It's almost not a must-win game, and there's no must-win games early. But I think Wallace Rose Hill is going to be ready to go. I really like the Bulldogs to make a statement this Friday night.
You said they weren't going to be ready to go.
They'll always be ready to go under Coach Kevin Motsinger, I guess. J.H. Rose at Laney, the last game I just want to touch on. It's the other game that we're going to be covering on Friday night. Local game in town. Joey Chandler will be covering it. Laney lost 14-0 to Northside Jacksonville. J.H. Rose is coming off a 38-35 victory over Fike. Laney, they're not playing necessarily the top of the line schools that Wallace Rose Hill and Hoggard are playing in the non-conference, but their non-conference schedule is pretty deep with some challenges. J.H. Rose, I think, has got to be the favorite in this game to come down to Wilmington and get a win. But if you're the Buccaneers, you got to get on the board and try and get this offense rolling a little bit this week.
Yeah, it's Laney the last couple of years hasn't had a cakewalk of a non-conference schedule anyway, but like you alluded to, it hasn't been like top 2 or 3 ranked teams in the state, but they've played enough top talent in the non-conference to get them ready and to always be that team you have to watch out for on any given Friday. They can. Laney at its best last year almost beat Hoggard.
Yeah. People
tend to forget that. Now, I know Sherrod Sidbury and those guys are gone, but it's just another example of how a couple years earlier, Laney right there to beat New Hanover, just right they've been on the cusp these last couple of years of really getting that statement win for Shad, Yeoman, and the Buccaneers. But can it happen against Rose? I have to wait and see.
We'll see. I mean, hey, they gave up 35 points to Fike. I think Laney losing 14-0 to Northside is, it's not great, but it's with how young that team is, I might have said that margin could have been bigger if going into that game last week. But so I think the Bucks, they knew it was going to be a transition year for them. Let's see what they can do in their first home game of the year.
I would say last year, Laney probably had the second best defense in the Mid-Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and
right behind Hoggard, and showed it in a number of games, some low-scoring affairs in a number of conference games. But is it going to be that same type of defense this year? Hard to tell after just one game, but 14-0.
Yeah, only giving up 14 points, and when you score 0 points, the other team's got a lot of opportunities to score against you, and they did a pretty good job limiting Northside Jacksonville. So those are the 4 games I just wanted to touch on. Again, I'm going to be headed to Whiteville. You can follow along for updates from that game against West Brunswick at Star News Varsity. As always, please follow us on Twitter at Star News Varsity, Facebook.com Star News Varsity. We got tons of video, photo galleries, game coverage, second day stuff. Always, we kind of blow up our coverage of the high school football season. Really proud of the work we did last week, and it's going to keep coming down the road. So appreciate y'all watching, and enjoy this week, and enjoy Labor Day weekend. Everybody stay safe out there and the Friday night lights that are to come.